So a company that we have been following for quite a while, and for all disclaimer, we are also a shareholder of, is SMRT Holdings Berhad. So the company is down almost 50% from the high. We've talked about SMRT in our FIRL program since 2023, I think.
I think early 2024.
Early 2024. So we've always liked the prospects of the company. Unfortunately, it's down 50%. I think a lot of people are asking, what's actually going on. So we'll move on to the next. So yeah, if you look at the fundamentals, it's actually doing fine, bar that one quarter in 2023. But they've had steady profits, and the reason they've had steady profits is because they have a steady business, right? They are related to Tenaga, and they help Tenaga manage basically outages, analyzing or developing analytics for Tenaga to improve their uptime and things like that using specific hardware and software.
Yeah. So their business is so far, there's no trouble, no signs of trouble. I mean, everything is fine. Profits, cash flow, everything is still going so well. And why the fall is because there is, if you read Hong Leong Investments Bank's research, right, they also are quite bullish actually. But essentially, Tenaga had like a slight slowdown in terms of giving them more contracts for the substation. So you can see over here, SMRT, the financial year end 2025, they already managed to, get the sites of like 2,500 substation compared to financial year 24, which is around 4,100, because there is a delay with their site provision. So this is a major risk because their major customer, it is Tenaga. That is the one that is giving them the most huge chunk of revenue. So if let's say they slow down, they delay, then SMRT also will be affected. And the second thing, it will be the unexpected delay in PLN contracts award from the top management changes. So this one is related to their overseas contract. So they have like, another business, which is their PLN in Jakarta, phase 2. So this, because of the change in management, that's why I think there's some sort of like pushback in overseas contributions. But nevertheless, they didn't say that this deal is being cancelled off. It's still ongoing. They're still working on that. It's just going to be like a slight delay. Maybe next financial year end, you will see this contribution. And last but not least, I think this is the real kicker of why it went down, is because of their expiry of the pioneer status in November 2025. Yeah. So last time, they used to pay like 0% tax rate, close to 0%.
Right, with pioneer tax rate.
Yes. So because of this expiry, most likely they need to pay about like 15% tax rate. But I think the market assumes that they are going to be paying 24%. I'm not too sure whether that's the case. It could be. But anyhow, from what we have learned is that the management is confident that they're going to be getting a 15% tax rate going forward. If they manage to renew their pioneer status, maybe it's going back to 0%. So there will be some tax overhang. However, it will be cleared because we will know the actual outcome, which is next year already.
Yeah, so if you look at the price movement now, right, 50% down, give or take, basically the market is saying that they think it's 25% tax rate. So that accounts for maybe 25% reduction of the stock price. And then 25% is the
slowdown in. Yeah.
So that is what the market is telling us now. And so as an investor, you have to ask yourself, is that a reasonable position to have? Of course, for us, we think that the taxes are not quite as bad as what the market is suggesting. And in terms of the Tenaga site delays, that's the one that we have no question marks about. We have no idea about as to how long they're going to delay and things like that. But one thing we do know is that eventually they would have to go ahead with
correct. It's a government's initiative because they want to do NET. They also want to hit their renewable energy targets. So which means they have to make sure that the substations are fully functional, to make sure that the grids are also doing well, and there's like zero power outage. So that's why they still need these services. Okay, the key thing that you may be asking is who is the one that is selling, right? So we compiled a few data out here, which we are comparing their financial year in 2024 and also 2025's annual report. So we discovered that there is a few institutions, foreigners, retailers are actually selling off this company. The major few ones actually over here. So number one, the retailer is Mr. Yo Yu Chu. Yeah. So he sold about 6 million. We're not sure whether he plainly sold it out or he got margin call. It could be margin call, it could be both, right? Another one, which is over here.
Life.
Yeah, there's Morgan Stanley, Citibank. They all used to be a top 30 shareholders, but right now they are not the top 30. So we assume that they just like sold out all of their stakes. And then there's also another one, AIA Berhad. So this is related to insurance company. So yeah, these are the guys who is actually currently selling. But this data doesn't really tell us the further sell down in October, because this data only captured until 30th of September. The latest 31st of October, right, there's even more sold down. So it could be like these same guys is who is suspect the local institutions, the insurance agent, the insurance companies, and probably some retailers that has a big stake over there. However, if you're interested in SMRT, here are some of the key catalysts that you need to know. So the first one is obviously Tenaga's delay, right? So what if they continue again? They don't delay, right? And it pays Tenaga's side provision. So that could be another, re-rating catalyst. Another one, which is their overseas contribution coming from Jakarta. I think they also have like a business in Philippines, which is managing their ATM machines or something like that. There's also other industries, like your water industries, that they also are helping out to do that. Another thing, which is the deployment. Yeah, this is the Philippines one. Deployment orders from their financial service institution. This is related to the ATM in Indonesia and also the Philippines. And last but not least, they also have an M&A that is going on. So this deal should be coming, I think the news should be coming soon. Right?
All we can say, because we cannot, we speak to them and we don't want to share too much. However, I think there are two things we want to highlight here based on these highlights. I think the first is, even though we see progress with Indonesia, just know that it's quite difficult to do business in Indonesia, basically, right? Especially with change in president. The second thing is the M&A. That one is very hush-hush. However, we do know, speaking to them, the information and the vibes that we get is that they are doing this out of increasing returns, which is very good, right? They are ROE focused, basically. Now, there's reason to believe them because, it may not register to you, but SMRT was an acquisition. Specifically, not SMRT as a whole, but when they transitioned from the cyber giant university education business into an Osiris, which is the current business now. They used to be, I think minority shareholders or something to that extent, and they've acquired the remaining shares, and that's why you're seeing the fruits of their efforts right now. So the point is, they have a history of good capital allocation so far. Granted, you can highlight the fact that Maha, which is the CEO, is still young. However, I believe he has a Goldman Sachs background, which is another good thing. So we want to highlight to you all the risk and potential rewards, because I think as an investor, you need to know what you're dealing with. And if you're not comfortable with, say, how Jakarta operates or how slow Tenaga is dishing out, and maybe you think it's going to be a halt for a very, very long time, then of course you can take all these risks into account. And on the flip side, the upsides are all these things that I mentioned earlier on.
Yep, and also a small little bonus over here. They're going to be transferring into the main market in the mid of calendar year end 2036. So the final thoughts over here is that the insurance institution retailers are the one that is disposing of. October is even more. And I did a rough calculation. So October, assuming there's like a 50% of these 36 million shares that is being traded as being selling off, right? That's about like an 18 million share that is being disposed of. So our calculations for financial year 2024 to 2025, it was 8 million shares. So if you add it all up, it's probably about 26 million shares. So 26 million is quite a huge chunk of money. I think it translates to approximately around like 13 to 15 million ringgit in value. So yeah, definitely it's coming from the big boys. It's not from the major shareholder so far when we are tracking about it. And number two is maybe someone got margin call because of the size of the disposal. I mean, this is obviously one of the suspects. We could never confirm about that.
But I think one thing we want to highlight is that through our research network, fortunately, the margin side is not with the companies, the major.
It's not with the major shareholders.
With the major shareholders.
Yeah.
However, I want to highlight that if you look at a lot of the sellers, a lot of them are actually foreign institutions as well. And so the thing about foreign institutions is that they tend to not want to bother with politics. So, probably I think the chief risk that they see is the Tenaga slowdown. And maybe they think, it's Malaysia, developing country, so it's unreliable. I think that's the big reason that these guys are setting up.
Could be. And last but not least, probably it's also a non-fundamental reason, because recently there was a report that they say that the ATE and OSAT tech guys are getting some sort of recovery.
Right.
So that could be potential like a rotation that is going on. So when they see SMRT, some sort of like a slowdown, and they saw like Vitrox, Unisem, they're all reporting like better quarterly. So there is a rotation to sell it and then they buy at something else. This is quite evident because if you recall, right, the AI hard that disposed of SMRT, they are actually buying like Vitrox, like tech companies right now, like some of these insurance company. So yeah, that could be the case. And last but not least, whether this is an opportunity, well, for transparency's sake also, we have been actively acquiring shares because of this sell down. But that is just our own opinion. Please don't follow what we do. Make sure you understand what is the business prospect and make sure that you are okay with the risks that they are currently facing. I think that will be very, very key for you as an investor.
And if you want to know our full thoughts on SMRT, you should check out the FIRL Pro. inside FIRL Pro, we actually give write-ups a long time ago, and we continuously update our members on what's happening with the company. We can share a lot more, right, in our group chats. So if you're really interested in seeing whether this could be an opportunity, do consider hopping onto FIRL Pro, which is the program that helps you shortcut a lot of this research. If you want to see what some of these write-ups look like, you can check out our KGB free sample. Just head over to our comment section and description to click on the link to see what's inside. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.